Good morning. It's November 30th, and this is your daily brief in climate change. Here's everything you need to know. Delegates from nearly 200 countries are attending the COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai. The summit aims to address urgent climate issues such as phasing out fossil fuels, transitioning to renewable energy, and closing the climate financing gap. Key areas include compensating vulnerable countries, reducing methane emissions, and preventing global temperature rise beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. The conference aims to establish a loss and damage fund for affected countries and highlight health arguments for climate action. Civil society and influential figures' involvement raises hope for progress, but disagreements between developed and developing countries pose challenges. Concerns have surfaced regarding the UAE's role as a major oil producer and its ability to meet its climate objectives. The success of the summit will be gauged on its ability to reduce emissions and prevent further climate-related damage. The wolverine population in the contiguous United States, currently around 300 animals, will be listed as endangered due to climate change and habitat fragmentation. The Biden administration has proposed federal protections for the wolverines following a federal judge's order. Concerns about genetic diversity, winter recreational activities, and spring snow reductions contribute to the need for protection. Federal agencies will need to consult with the Fish and Wildlife Service for activities that could harm the wolverines on public lands. The proposal includes provisions for accidental killing of wolverines provided trappers report captures and use best practices to avoid harm. The formal addition of wolverines to the endangered list will occur in 30 days, after a 60-day public comment period. Global greenhouse gas emissions increased by 2% from 2021 to 2022, reaching 57.4 gigatons of CO2 equivalent. Without drastic cuts, global temperatures could rise nearly 3 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, surpassing the 1.5 C threshold for catastrophic effects. Current emissions cutting targets are insufficient, with an expected 2% reduction by 2030 compared to 2019 levels, while a 43% reduction is needed to limit warming to 1.5 C. Top 20 fossil fuel producing countries are planning to overproduce by 110% in 2030, jeopardizing climate goals. Adaptation efforts in poorer nations are underfunded by $366 billion due to the focus of wealthy nations on mitigation projects. The Global Stocktake Report emphasizes the need for more ambitious emissions reduction targets, aiming for a 43% reduction by 2030 and net zero CO2 emissions by 2050. The emissions gap for 2030 is estimated to be 23.9 GTCO2 EQ, and the remaining atmospheric carbon budget is about 400 GTCO2, equivalent to about 7 years of current emissions. To meet these targets, a phase-out of fossil fuels and urgent emissions reductions across all sectors are required. Current global warming of 1 degree C is causing severe impacts, and exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius will result in irreversible damage. The current response to global warming is insufficient. The climate crisis presents an urgent challenge, with rising temperatures, CO2 levels, and biodiversity loss leading to severe economic consequences. A transition to a low-carbon economy is necessary for businesses and governments to secure a sustainable future. The global green technology and sustainability market is projected to reach $62 billion by 2030, but a lack of technical expertise is hindering progress. Many entities have not set emission reduction targets, indicating a need for greater commitment to addressing climate change. A paradigm shift is needed where carbon impact becomes a critical factor in all decision-making processes. Businesses should prioritize sustainability to protect profit margins, retain talent, and address the environmental concerns of younger generations. The cost of inaction on climate change is projected to be higher than the cost of mitigation measures. Developed countries need to provide more financial support to combat climate change and its impacts in vulnerable nations, especially in the Pacific region. Climate change is leading to more frequent and destructive weather events, causing substantial damage and displacement of people. Small island nations are incurring billions in economic losses due to these events. Developed countries have not fulfilled their promise to provide $100 billion in climate funding to developing countries by 2020. The current level of climate finance is greatly insufficient, with adaptation needs being 10 to 18 times greater than available funding. A loss and damage fund needs to be established and adequately financed to support vulnerable communities. Current greenhouse gas emission trends indicate a 5-degree warming by the end of the century, which could have devastating impacts in the Pacific. The international community must prioritize the needs of vulnerable developing countries and ensure fast, uncomplicated access to finance. Climate change is linked to global accountability, justice, trust, and survival, with developing countries suffering the most despite contributing minimally to greenhouse gas emissions. COP28 represents a critical opportunity for the international community to take urgent steps to meet the Paris Agreement goals and support vulnerable nations. This has been your daily brief in climate change. To read more about these stories, follow the links in the episode bio. You can also subscribe to these updates at www.brief.news. And for more daily podcasts about the topics you love, visit www.brief.news/podcasts. Tune in tomorrow. We'll be back with everything you need to know.